Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship 4 from Barcelona. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and that is Paul Cheon. And it's time to battle here in the draft rounds. We've got our two undefeated players now. I use that term a little loosely because we are talking about two players with a 0 in the losses column, although one of them does have a draw. Bernardo Santos has a draw. Arnaud Hocquemiller, who we got to watch draft, is on 8-0 for his record coming in overnight. But subject to change because he is not happy with how his draft went. Paul, you and I had some issues with it. Take a look at Arnaud here. He says he felt tired and unfocused during the draft, just had a hard time kind of putting it all together. And that showed. His deck is not great. Interestingly, his opponent, Bernardo Santos from Portugal on the other side of the table, he's actually in the same color pair. They are both black-white changeling or cares about creature type. His deck is better. Yeah. But not amazing.
Right, yeah, they were both on opposite sides of the table. So, you know, it wasn't something where Bernardo Santos was, you know, train wrecking Arnaud's draft deck. So, yeah, but Bernardo's deck definitely a lot more focused, you know, a heavy emphasis on changelings and a lot of the synergies. And yeah, just a really nice mana curve as well.
All right, well, 1 mana plays for both players to kick things off, though Bernardo gets the benefit of having his actually on the battlefield, as it was Knight of Old Benalia suspended for Arnaud Hocquemiller, where Bernardo, well, he played a Changeling Outcast, and so far, nothing on 2. Ransack the Lab, though, is kind of a nothing on 2 as well for Arnaud, as it's not going to affect the board this turn. It will help smooth out his draw a bit here and set him up for future turns, however. So Bernardo did actually have something to do. He cycled a secluded step for that turn. Again, similar to Ransack the Lab in that it might set him up for future, but nothing great. Now he's got Ranger Captain of Eos, but unfortunately for Bernardo, that Changeling Outcast is the lone target he has for it in his deck, so he's not going to be able to do its primary role, which is search up a 1/1, and instead he's just going to get a 3/3 for 3 with an activated ability that is probably unlikely to get used.
Yeah, we were looking over the deck and trying to figure out how many different 1-drops he had. It was just the Outcast, but you know, it's one of those things where even if you do draw the Outcast, still a 3-mana 3/3. But if you don't, I mean, it's certainly just fine enough on its own.
Bernardo has to be looking at the graveyard here. Ransack the Lab put Putrid Goblin and Wall of 1,000 Cuts into it, yet Arnaud didn't actually play anything on 3, so it's kind of like, what is going on here? And Bernardo's like, well, I guess I'll just attack, and Arnaud took it, so sure, that works. Turn 4 here, let's see what he's got. It was a Talisman of Hierarchy and into a Gluttonous Slug. So kind of an awkward curve out here for Bernardo, all told. Yeah, he had the 1 drop, but then kind of missed on 2, played the Ranger Captain with no targets, and now on 3 he's got the Gluttonous Slug, but it doesn't even have any counters on it just yet. So a little stumbly here, but taking a look at Arnaud, he's got to have something here, right? Like, can he afford to just do nothing for the turn? Maybe a Defile? Yeah,
he's got a Defile. He's only got the 2 Swamps, so he's probably going to just look to use it on the Outcast because he won't be able to block it. And next turn, he has Graveshifter in hand, so he's going to be able to cast Graveshifter and run it out to get something back, which still won't be able to block because there's a 3/3 on the board along with the Menace Gluttonous Slug, but wants to preserve the life total if at all possible.
Yeah, this is kind of playing out how I figured the Arnaud's deck would. It's got some stuff, but it's a little clunky.
Yeah, definitely.
We do see that Knight of Old Benalia ticking downward, though. It's on 2 time counters left, so it'll be coming in a couple of turns' time. In the meantime, as you pointed out, Paul, no good blocks here, so Ranger Captain of Eos slams in. Unfortunately for Bernardo, he doesn't have any creatures to play, so that Gluttonous Slug is just going to sit there as an 0/3. So 1 turn left until the Knight comes down, and there's land number 5 for apparently one of Arnaud's most favorite cards, because he has 3 of them in his, at least in his list. Let's see how many he actually played. That is Wall of 1,000 Cuts.
3,000 cuts? I'm going to go with 3.
He went for all 3,000.
Oh, that's a lot of cuts.
You are correct, Paul. So Arnaud, a big fan of that one, and frankly, it looks pretty darn good here.
Yeah, yeah, and Bernardo kind of out of gas. You know, he had a solid curve to start out and even cycled a secluded step, but not a whole lot else to go. He's tapping, he's convoking something? Okay. Oh, and that's really nice. he convoked out Martyr's Soul, tapped 2 creatures and a talisman for mana, and that allowed him to put it into play with 2 counters.
This is the
Those are the
benefits
things
of
you can
knowing this set.
appreciate.
Yeah, totally. Love that. Oh, man. It's the little things, Paul.
Right. That was a huge draw. I mean, he just drew a 5/4 and also put a counter on the slug.
Yeah, that was really big for him. That's a card that can actually attack into that wall and force at least a trade of some sort. In the meantime, back to you, Arnaud, and he's got Knight of Old Benalia now coming off the stack and entering the battlefield. That's going to give his creatures +1/+1 until end of turn.
Yeah, I saw a reprobation in Bernardo's hand, and I kind of expected him to cast it on the wall, but a little surprised that he didn't.
I'm surprised as well. I suppose he can wait till next turn to do so and see if there's a better target for it, but
yeah, or maybe he's happy if Arnaud chooses to attack with the wall this turn, right?
Mm-hmm. Arnaud has Recruit the Worthy in his hand, so he can start chaining those together.
Yeah, and we have the Knight of Old Benalia trigger. It is not a 4/4. It gives +1/+1 to the other creatures on the battlefield. So that Martyr Soul actually doing a really good job of keeping the ground creatures at bay because the Graveshifter is a 3/3 and the Knight is a 3/3.
You can see kind of the power level for Arnaud's deck here. It is not super high, right? He's got the Wall of 1,000 Cuts medium card. He's got the Knight of Old Benalia. It's okay, you know, maybe a little bit better than medium. But in his hand, he has Recruit the Worthy and a Trustworthy Scout. It's just, you know, kind of the lower tier commons in the least popular color, white. So he's really having to kind of scrap things together, is Arnaud. If he's going to come away, you know, with a decent record out of this draft, he's going to have to run a little hot, and he's going to have to kind of piece together some unlikely wins.
So I have a little bit interesting too. If you take a look at Arnaud's hand, he's got a Trustworthy Scout and a Recruit the Worthy. So he can cast Recruit the Worthy and buy it back, but he still could have run out the Trustworthy Scout, right?
Yeah.
Is there something else he wanted to do with the 2 mana?
I'm not seeing it. Yeah, it feels like you'd rather just have the 2/2 and then start doing the buyback thing. Because now we see the wall get kind of locked down by reprobation, and here comes that Recruit the Worthy.
I suppose maybe he really wanted, if he played the Martyr, he doesn't think that the Martyr, no.
I got nothing, Paul.
Right. Yeah, so I imagine Arnaud's going to just go for the double block here and hope for the best.
That's what he did, and it worked out.
Yep.
So he gets rid of that Martyr's Soul. That was the biggest problem, and really the only problematic card on the other side of the battlefield. And Edgar's got some work to do. Excuse me, Bernardo has some work to do. He's got to.
Yeah, but he drew a really nice one.
What did he draw?
He drew Graveshifter.
Oh, hello.
So
friend.
he got that trade. Now he's going to play Graveshifter, put an additional counter on the Gluttonous Slug, and then get back the Martyr Soul and turn it into a 5/4 again, which will further pump the Slug into a 3/6.
There's land number 4 for Santos. And there's the Graveshifter.
Okay, looks like he's going for the Outcast here instead.
Interesting. You figured you'd want to take a little bit of a longer line, but remember, Arnaud's down to 11, and he did use a removal spell on that Outcast before. Perhaps he's worried about it.
Yeah.
Still a 5/4.
Right. Yeah,
against this board is nice.
Just wants to get the action going. I mean, just having that 1/1 unblockable, really valuing that.
And now we're going to see reprobation on the 1/1 unblockable. That little Outcast has got a lot of attention on it this game.
Public enemy number 1.
It's drawn the 2 removal spells we've seen cast from Hocquemiller, so you got to love that.
Yeah, but now, I mean, the Gluttonous Slug is currently a 2/5. He can't even attack.
Nope.
Imagine if he convoked out the Martyr Soul, it would be a 3/6.
That's right, but the Venomous Changeling is actually a pretty nice one here. That can start chipping in just for one a turn. Maybe if he can... Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, because of the...
He didn't want to trade it for the Graveshifter, I guess.
All right, and now we're in a situation where because Bernardo didn't have, a quick start.
We just drew the last of the 3,000 cuts off the top of the library.
Hey, I mean, in this matchup with just a bunch of medium-sized creatures, 3-5 is kind of king.
It looks great, I gotta say. Arnaud may be onto something here. And he's going to start attacking with it, then just replace it instead of going for the buyback plan. He figures this is a more impactful play for himself. Yeah, this looks good.
Yep.
And getting up to 8 mana to start doing the Recruit the Worthy twice, of course, is key.
And Bernardo drawing some lands here, so yeah, I mean, I think Arnaud is hugely favored here. He's got that Recruit the Worthy in hand that can just generate additional tokens.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, and it seems like the perfect type of card, at least in this matchup, where Bernardo doesn't really have an especially aggressive deck.
It's also a 3-turn clock in the air if he wants to get aggro with the walls. Just 6, 12, 18 you.
And that's what it looks like Arnaud's going for here. He's got enough chump blockers.
Plenty of them.
And yeah, Bernardo realizing that he needs to get aggressive here to actually have a chance, because he's just going to die to the walls.
Did you get it?
No.
Oh, this fly has just been killing us in the booth. We'll devise a trap between this round and next.
Yeah, I'm
fall.
coming up with a plan.
Yeah. Put your R&D brain on it, and we'll get that sorted out. In the meantime, Bernardo trying to get something going here, but it's really desperation time for him.
Yeah, Arnaud trying to line up the blocks here, deciding. I mean, he can just triple block the Changeling, and yeah, this looks like a fairly reasonable block. Just take 2 from the Slug, get both the Graveshifter and the Changeling off the battlefield.
Yeah, and what Bernardo's trying to do is just set up for a decent return from extinction.
It's going to be very good.
It will be, but it won't be good enough, right? The truth is that this game's gone long enough for Hocquemiller to come up with enough mana to just flood the board with 1/1s thanks to Recruit the Worthy, and Bernardo's game plan just doesn't play well against that.
Right.
He doesn't really have much evasion going on. And he's going to get 2 cards back, including the Graveshifter. He can start running those out.
All the value.
But again, look at the life totals here. That's 6 power in the air from Arnaud, and it's just bang, bang, you're dead. So unless Bernardo can find at least a way to stem the bleeding in the air next turn, he's just gonna be dead.
Right.
Got it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Master.
Game.
Wait. I mean, it's still a creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can you not convoke with a reprobation on a creature?
I thought it was.
Oh, it
doesn't give it an ability.
There's 3 black creatures in play.
Ah.
He needed to keep a white creature or have white mana available.
That makes more sense, doesn't it?
So Bernardo really needs to find an answer here to the wall, or he's just going to die. Oh, and he found it.
What did he find?
I think that's the Defile.
1, 2, 3, 4?
Oh, 4. So he's going to be able to not die, but he won't be able to kill the wall unless the other card in hand is a swamp. But we all know it's Martyr's Soul. Wow.
Wow, that was close. Unfortunately for him, he really needed to find 2 removal spells in a row, realistically, and they both had to outright kill a wall. Instead, he's going to be able to stem the bleeding. It doesn't feel like he's going to be able to come up with a way to race from this point.
Right, and now it looks like he was trying to convoke out a Martyr Soul, but if he did, he would have to take 1 damage from the Talisman. So now it looks like Bernardo weighing his options here. He can tap Ranger Captain of Eos if he wants to make a 5/4 and not take any damage. Looks like he's just going to hard cast it.
And line up some type of attack here.
Yeah, but...
This is desperation time now for Bernardo Santos because there's 4 mana, make a 1/1, 4 mana, again make a 1/1.
Yeah, I imagine he's going to make another 1-1 here. There's no real... Yeah, and all... Well, let's see. Bernardo will live due to the defile, but Arnaud just has enough blockers here, right? He doesn't really care too much about the changeling either. He just needs to make sure that he puts creatures in front of the 3 power cards.
Yep. I mean, it's tough for Bernardo because this is very much a race at this point. He would win if the game went longer, as Arnaud has, in many ways, run out of gas and the 1-1s aren't really keeping up with the board. But the window is so short that Bernardo basically has to come up with a win by next turn.
Yep.
And that just seems really difficult.
So going to double block, it looks like he's going to take 4, go down to 5. But, you know, given that Arnaud has access to 10 mana, he's going to spend 2 to attack with the walls, and then he's still just going to be able to make 2 additional tokens. If he draws a land, he can actually make 3 tokens.
Right, so there's Defile to shrink down a wall. It's still 3 damage. Bernardo's going to drop to 2.
And he can still block 3 creatures.
May as well just play your lands.
Oh yeah, playing the land is very, very big because that allows you to have an additional blocker in case Bernardo somehow draws, you know, some additional removal spells to get the blockers out of the way.
You can't forget that you can still cast Recruit the Worthy for just white, so we could go buyback, and then just cast it if he needs. Yep, great point, Paul. Passes the turn back.
Does he really still have that? Like, imagine if that Trustworthy Scout was just in play. That would have also adjusted the math.
It is
earlier,
weird that he just hung on to that in for that couple of turns when he had the mana to cast it.
Right.
Perhaps bluffing or something, but maybe too high level. Is there anything for Bernardo that he can draw?
I don't think so.
You know, any other creature out of the board won't really do anything.
Yeah, at this point, given that he's at 2, a single removal spell doesn't do it either.
Exactly. It looked like another Gluttonous Slug from here. And that certainly will not get the job done. I mean, he needs to force the issue and just make Arnaud make the correct blocks, but then it's time to scoop him up.
Right. All Arnaud has to do is make sure he remembers to put some tokens into play, not take 5 damage, and he will have this game.
Yeah, send in with the Retribution.
Try to bluff that Stirring Address, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. And let's see if Arnaud actually runs out the last one.
Well, I mean, he's for sure going to win next turn, right? So I think just try not to take any chances here and block as many things as possible.
So he ended up making 3 things this turn at 5.
Yeah.
Interesting. One of the cards that comes to mind that Bernardo, actually that Arnaud had a chance to take but decided to pass on, was Force of Despair, which Bernardo ended up with in his deck, and he could have actually killed all 3 of those new tokens.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if he would have had enough to still get in for the win, but that could have made things at least a little bit more interesting.
Actually, a Stirring Address would have done it. It looks like he was able to get in for 3 points of damage with the way the blocks were lined up. So if he drew Stirring Address, that would have been. Was that going to be enough? Was he at 5? I think he was at 5. Yeah. So that would have done it. So close game.
Yeah.
Close game.
That ended up being really, really close, but ultimately was Arnaud Hocquemiller who picked up game number 1 thanks to not 1, not 2, but 3,000 cuts. And he got the job done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll be right back into live draft action here from Barcelona. Don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, I've got Paulo here who has 13 top finishes under his belt and is going to crack this pack of Modern Horizons for us. Paulo, you like this format?
I do, yeah. I think it's fun. The drafting is interesting and the game plan is usually cool.
All right, so we're going to lay out these cards here so everybody can play along at home, kind of figure out what your first pick from this pack will be, and just tell us a little bit about why. All right, so what are you seeing as you're laying some of these cards out?
All right, so Answered Prayers is a very good card. I think it's the best white common. White decks are usually aggressive, have a bunch of creatures can trigger it. Not a card I'm looking to first pick, but I will be happy to play.
All right, let's get a few more out on the table here. We've got a Goblin War Party, a Rhyme Tender, Stirring Address, not really interested in that. Spring Bloom Druid, pretty critical for a few strategies.
Yeah, I like the Druid because it enables a bunch of different things. It finds no mana, it finds splashes, it puts a land in the graveyard for the green-red card. So I think this is a pretty good first pick. You can go in many different directions.
All right, well, let's see what else we've got. We've got a Lava Dart, Windcaller, Aven, Mind Rake, no. Diabolic Edict, no. Choking Tethers, no. And now we're starting to get into some of our uncommons here. All right, what's it going to be? Force of Virtue. Okay, Paula, what do you like here?
Well, Force of Virtue is a very good card. I think this is a battle between card and color, because I think white is... I don't like the white strategies. I like the green strategies a lot more. But I think Force of Virtue is enough of a better card that I'm willing to just stake it and play what I perceive to be a worse archetype just to get to play with such a strong card.
For you, if you had your choice, what would be the color pair that you would most like to be in Modern Horizons draft?
I think the best decks are the very good blue-black decks, the ninja decks, but they don't come together very often, and they are kind of narrow because the blue cards aren't as good. So yeah, if I'm choosing my deck, it's gonna end up being a blue-black deck, but I really like black-red because I think both colors are very good, and green is good too. So I don't truly care as long as it's not white.
All right, well, we're taking a white card here though, right?
We are, because I think it's enough better than Springbone Druid that it's a combat trick and also pumps your team, and white is go wide in this format, so it really fits what the deck's trying to do.
All right, here we go. Force of Virtue, pack one, pick one.
And welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship 4 from Barcelona, Spain. That's Paul Chion. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and we're drafting. So this is still in the first round of draft here on day number 1, and we're going to do 3 rounds before we transition back over to Modern a little bit later in the day. But for now, we've got our 2 undefeated players, one of them sitting at a cool 8-0. That's Arnaud Hocquemiller on the left-hand side of your screen. On the right is Bernardo Santos, who is 7-0-1. That 1, of course, represents a draw on Bernardo's record. Let's see if our players are all set and ready. We've got a black-white mirror match, both decks very much in the mid-range of things. And you know what? That is where a card like what Arnaud has in his deck, like Recruit the Worthy and even the Wall of 1,000 Cuts, kind of shines.
Yeah, definitely. Those cards may be a little bit clunky against the more streamlined decks of the format, and we do have some aggressive decks that exist. But, in kind of this slower kind of grind fest, I think those cards really, really shine. I mean, having that evasion was key because the ground, neither player could really get good attacks in on the ground.
Arnaud looks like he's taking a mulligan here, so not going the way he wanted, but he did pick up game number 1 from Bernardo, although Bernardo really did make it a game, didn't he? He got super close there.
Yeah, I mean, he got a lot of value. I mean, he has multiple copies of Graveshifter in his deck, and the fact that he has so many Changelings means that Return from Extinction is also extremely powerful in his deck.
Let's take a look at one of our back tables here. That's Guillaume Wafotapa on the left. Toralf Severin, great day 1 for Toralf, and he's up a game. He's playing Tron in the Modern portion. Here, though, looks like red-green lands is his weapon of choice, and Guillaume somehow trying to force blue-white control
in every format.
In everything.
This is really interesting because,
Oof.
Tornado.
Yeah, you're not going to like what that one does, Wafo.
Wafo probably has a counterspell.
You're right, it is Wafo.
But
except for there are none. Well, he can save it. He can shelter. That's a counterspell, right?
Yeah, that is basically a counterspell. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is, we heard a lot of our top players saying that they really did not want to be white. And in this draft, interestingly enough, 3 white drafters, right? We had 2 white-black players and then a blue-white player in Guillaume. Look
at this, Nantuko Cultivator pitching 2 lands. You don't see that very often. Wow, and another copy of Tornado.
Yeah, I mean, the Ralph's deck looks very solid.
Yeah, and it's going to look really good here. He gets a decent attack in with this Elemental.
And it feels bad on Wafotapa's side because you know that he had no cards in hand. He pitched 2 lands, and you know exactly what he drew off the Cultivator.
Mm-hmm. How do you say "must be nice" in French? I wonder.
I'm sure chat can help us with that.
All right, looks like Arnaud has kept. Let's head back up to our main match here and see how things play out there. Of course, Arnaud is heavily favored now, having picked up game number 1. But looking at the decks on paper, I do like Bernardo's build a bit better.
Yes.
So he'll have probably a slight edge in the matchup as a whole. But yeah, of course, picking up a game tends to swing things sharply in your favor. And let's take a look. It looks like Bernardo on the play is going to kick things off, this time with nothing.
Arnaud with a one-lander? No, has 2 lands. Okay.
And he's got the Talisman of Hierarchy for Bernardo. So while a little slow to get things going, oh, he could start slamming some pretty good stuff next turn. And Arnaud's got a pair of Swamps and a Putrid Goblin before passing the turn back. Now this next turn's important. Bernardo really wants to start adding significantly to the board here. Does he have the Ranger?
Ooh, and this is nice.
He does.
And this time it looks like he doesn't have the Changeling Outcast in hand, so really great turn 3 here.
He's going to cast it too.
Yeah, a 3/3 and an unblockable Changeling on the battlefield turn 3.
Boom.
Very nice.
Yeah, the Talisman of Hierarchy taking a turn off on 2 looks a little rough, but when they do this, it's like, okay, I get it now. And once again, the ball very much in Arnaud's court. He's got to react here. This Putrid Goblin can hold back for a little bit, but it doesn't block currently. At least not efficiently.
So no good attack here. But I think I see a Talisman on Arnaud's side as well. So I think we're going to see Talisman Enduring Sliver.
Yeah, you're going to take a damage from that. All right, well. Now he's at least got a way to combat the Ranger Captain. Though Bernardo may just want to make a trade. Oh, especially with that draw off the top of the library. He found Return from Extinction, which sort of encourages you to trade.
Right.
Though once again, the Ranger Captain of Eos, the only target in the deck is that Changeling Outcast, unfortunately for Bernardo, so he won't be able to kind of go off.
Curious to see if Bernardo attacks with both, maybe as a potential bluff. Getting double blocking and having a trick is pretty rough. Oh, never mind.
Well, he's going to use a Convoke here to put Feaster on the battlefield.
Right, and it looks like he's not choosing to Devour here, and he's just happy to have a 3/3 flyer in play. So yeah, Bernardo with a taking a turn off, but really making the most of it here, putting a lot of pressure, putting a lot of permanence on the battlefield.
Yeah, perhaps just overwhelming Arnaud before he can really get his feet under him. Let's find out.
Although there is some consideration to sacrificing maybe 1 creature, turn it into a 5/5, given the Wall of 1,000 Cuts that he saw in Game 1. He saw 3 copies of it.
Also the fact that he has Return from Extinction in hand matters.
Right. So sizing it up to a 5/5 could be very, very important.
I agree, especially given that with a white source, Arnaud could just play Wall of 1,000 Cuts. He didn't actually have it here, but he, that was a possibility for sure. Yeah, I like your line there, Paul. Let's see. Here's a Lancer Sliver now.
Ooh, look at this, though.
And we're going to start building up a Changeling Outcast, which, of course, is a sliver itself. So he's going to use Enduring Sliver's ability to put a counter on it with Outlast and then attack with everything.
Why is he... okay. Why didn't he block the Ranger Captain? The Enduring Sliver has first strike, right?
It does.
So you might as well block the 3/3?
Yes. I think that was a misstep there from Arnaud.
Right.
If you're content with letting your Putrid Goblin
die, might as well take 1 less
yeah,
point of damage.
Two is definitely less than 3.
Right.
According to my research. So passes a turn back, and Arnaud, perhaps a little misstep there, giving up a point of damage.
And as you can see, there is a purple die on the Goblin. That is a -1/-1 counter, while the white dice represents +1/+1 counters on the creatures.
Arnaud still with no 5th Lana and specifically no 2nd white mana source. Remember, he is on a mulligan here. Passes the turn back. Swamp off the top of the library here for Bernardo. But
yep.
He has built out a nice board and looks like he's in the driver's seat.
Yeah, Arnaud in some trouble here. Bernardo can still attack with the Ranger Captain and just trade with the Enduring Sliver. Can also attack with the Outcast, as it is unblockable.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some outlasting here.
Yeah. Yeah, this looks good. Attacking for 5 here and then spending the rest of your mana to outlast onto your 2 other slivers.
Yeah.
So
keeps the pressure up. whittles away at the board and sets up for a great turn next turn, specifically if Arnaud can't come up with that second white mana source to get that wall.
Right.
If he does, then he'll slow down Bernardo pretty significantly, because Bernardo's running out of gas himself.
Yeah, although he does have a reprobation in hand.
Okay.
So that is an answer to
That
the first
helps.
wall of 1,000 cuts.
There's a Defile in hand here for Hocquemiller. And there it is, the
Okay.
white source off the top of the library. But this sequence actually does not end up working out super well for him. He plays it, takes the damage from the Talisman, then gets Retrobation on it, and,
Right.
and is forced to basically chump it away. And the tempo game kind of comes into play.
Yeah, and Bernardo gets a huge attack in. I mean, next turn he can get in for 8.
Yeah, it's interesting because you saw Hocquemiller pause on the end step last turn with that Defile in hand, considering maybe I should just run it out. And at this point, it looks like he should have, right? You're going to have to kill these things anyway. And I think he was trying to go for a little extra value by perhaps encouraging Bernardo to use Outlast and then do it in response to tie up some of his mana. But he may not have that luxury this time.
All right, now just putting the pressure here.
Yeah, slamming.
Arnaud doesn't have great blocks. I imagine we're going to see a chump block here. It looks like a double chump block?
Yep, he just double chumped to soak up the damage.
Okay. And, I mean, you know, if Arnaud can untap and play another wall of 1,000 cuts, I mean, he's still kind of okay on the ground or against the 3/3 slivers currently.
And he can. He's got the second 1,000 cuts in hand here.
At the same time, he might really just want to use that Defile at some point to
Yeah.
get the Enduring Sliver off the board.
Tell you what, that window when he chose not to use it on the Enduring Slivers might really come back to bite him. If Bernardo doesn't have anything else to do, he's just going to dump a bunch of mana into Outlasting.
Right.
And he's even going to put his creatures out of range of the Defile as it currently sits.
Yeah, mana sinks seem extremely important in this matchup. because
Agreed.
Both players aren't the most aggressive decks, and you know, they don't have a lot of card draw. So having, you know, the buyback spells or the Outlast effects really paying off here.
And we saw that in game one.
Yeah. And now Arnaud absolutely, he needs, did he find the 4th swamp? Because now they're out of reach.
He did
right?
not. They're out of reach now. He's only got 3, and so the window has well and truly closed. If he had a swamp here, he still could. He has reprobation off the top. That will get the job done at least to a point. But it's still a 2/3. You know, we're really playing with fire here for Arnaud, as any removal spell to get that wall out of the way, even temporarily, will get the job done. And even if he doesn't, he still has pressure. That Changeling Outcast is still slamming for 2. And with Arnaud at 8, that's a 4-turn clock on its own.
Yeah, but it looks like it's potentially right here. It looks like Arnaud may have stabilized, right? Because if Bernardo doesn't have a removal spell, the 3/5 is kind of holding the fort with the ground creatures.
I wonder if
and
it
he's got
even
a
is.
Defile
I
in
would just
hand.
attack anyway. Like, if he wants to eat up the 2/3, you get in for 6 and put him on a 1-turn clock. I think I'd be fine with that.
Did Arnaud not Defile?
He has Defile in hand.
Right. Did he take the 2 damage, though?
No way. Oh,
right.
he did.
There's no way, right?
He did.
What?
Strange, because he showed so much respect for that Changeling Outcast before. And now, wow, what is going on here? Because maybe it's just not Defile in his hand.
It's probably not Defile.
Because he also just drew Irregular Cohorts, I believe, and he could have cast that plus Defile.
Right.
And really kind of put himself in a stable situation.
Yeah, you have to kill the unblockable creature. You're at 8, and he's just attacking every single turn.
Right, and he's, there
Okay,
it
so
is.
it was a Defile.
Oh, he wanted a Splice.
No, he had 5 mana. Oh, I see what you're saying. He wanted the Splice and make a 3/3.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, maybe he just thought,
Right.
look, this is the only way I can come back, is by getting some extra value from Splicer's skill.
Okay.
It is risky stuff from Arnaud, but he is trying to put a longer-term game plan into play by getting something out of Splicer's skill. You can see where he's coming from there.
Yeah. All right, that actually makes sense.
Yeah, but he's playing with fire because his life total has gotten pretty low.
Yeah, and this is a huge turn from Bernardo.
Yeah,
he gets to play a 1/1 unblockable creature, but he got the Feaster of Fools back, and he's going to be able to make this into a 5/5, which will be able to attack through the wall. He might even make it a 7/7 just to force the chump block. Although, given that Changeling Outcast is in play, it still forces a chump block. But by making it into a 7/7, you also get to play around things like Stirring Address, potentially, if Arnaud has that in hand. curious to see how many creatures he's going to stack. At least a token. But
also another thing to keep your eye on, and I'm sure Arnaud is keeping an eye on this as well, is that Bernardo has been very careful to leave up black, colorless. He does have Force of Despair in his hand. And that is going to be game number 2 going to Bernardo Santos. He got off to a quick start off after a bit of a stumble there from Arnaud, and he really never let up pressure long enough. So game number 3 incoming between these two. Again, these are the only 2 players in the room that have a 0 in the loss column, so not too bad. Let's take a look at what's going on our back table here. It looks like we've got Alan Wu versus Christian Hauck.
yeah, and you know, taking a look at just the players in the pod, these would be kind of 2 of the people I would be most scared of. I think, you know, Alan Wu, I've had the opportunity, you know, he was shortly on the play design team, and I had the opportunity to play with him. He's a fantastic player, very, very strong limited player.
Yeah, he's just really good.
Right.
Yeah, super smart guy. And Christian Hauck, of course, is in the MPL, so
of course.
There you go.
Yeah. And it looks like Christian is the snow drafter. We saw Christian Calcano's draft, and he was kind of waffling between snow and ninjas. But it looks like Christian is the one. I mean, if you're playing Merit Legion Slumber,
You are the snow player.
you are the snow player.
Gluttonous Slug got reset there by String of Disappearances, but Alan Wu immediately, wow, with a big
seasoned
recovery.
pyromancer?
It is, and with no cards in hand, he just gets to draw 2 cards. Nice.
Yeah. Got some heavy hitters there, and Christian's deck looks great. I mean, just looking at his graveyard.
And this is a really nice Pondering Mage here. He did find one of his best cards, it has to be, not the Rhyme Tender, although he did get that as well. But he found an Abominable Tree Folk as well to help stem the bleeding next turn. And apparently he won last game with a Merit Lage token.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I mean, you're full snow then, right? I mean, you need so many snow permanents to be able to make that Merit Lage token. That is awesome.
You think he traded in for a Kankrix?
Don't think
it doesn't
so.
make Merit Lage, but it does reward you for having a lot of snow.
But he had all the payoff cards.
Yeah, he probably just has all of it.
Right.
All right, Alan's getting aggressive here, turning everything sideways, and that is in the face of a Pondering Mage here from Christian. So he's got good blocks, at least at face value. Something's going on for Alan. Currently only getting in for, what, the single point of damage?
Yeah, I mean, if the season...
Oh, but he's showing him 2 cards saying, I've just got you.
Yeah.
He's got Fists of Flame and
Firebolt.
Firebolt, and that is enough to get the job done. Alan Wu evens things up at 1 game apiece. No Merit Lage this turn, or this time for Christian.
Yeah. Wow, what a game. I mean, take a look at what was in Christian's graveyard, right? I mean, he had so much power going on, but looked like Alan was able to power through everything and had just enough reach to close out that game. Were you sideboarding here?
Does look like he's Arnaud is just finishing up any potential sideboard changes that he's decided to make. Oh man, that's bothering me. Paul, look at the deck box on the table. He didn't even take the piece of paper off of it. Didn't even unwrap his present all the way.
It's the little things. Or apparently it's a big thing.
Yeah. You know, like when you get a new piece of electronics, whatever it is, they always put that plastic sheet on it to protect it.
Like when you get like a new TV.
Yeah, I just take that off right. I can't. I hate it when people leave that on. All right, we got another match going here. Guillaume Afotapa versus Toro Severin. And let's take a look at what they're working with here. We saw the end of game number 2, well, at least what looked like to be the end of game number 2 for Toralf there. And now we're in game number 3.
Sword? That looks like a sword.
Where are you seeing a sword? Yeah, that
Guillaume's
is.
side.
Yeah, that is Sword of Truth and Justice.
So that's going to be a gigantic rock. Oh, okay. It looks like, oh, he's on the defensive. He's at 12 life here.
Yeah, unfortunately, that sword is really an offensive-minded sword in the sense that it starts spreading counters around everywhere and does a really good job of that. But if you're just on one creature, you know, it does require you to attack, and he's not really in a position that he wants to. Now, that rocks Veteran, though.
Toralf,
it's big.
Toralf has a Quakefoot Cyclops in hand, though.
It looks like he can do both if he casts a wall. Yeah.
Yep.
And there it is.
So he gets a big attack and gets to attack in for 8 damage here.
Oof. That's a huge hit and really important here because Guillaume is at 12. And if you look at it, it's 4, 4, and 4 are the powers. So any one of those 3 creatures from Toralf hits Guillaume and the game ends.
Right. Guillaume needs to find 2 additional things to put onto the battlefield or 2 additional removal spells.
That's right. And he has to hope.
Right.
And Toralf doesn't have some way to get
currently
through
he doesn't,
anyway.
you know, I think that's a Windcaller Aven in hand, so he can't play that. He might just cycle it to scour all possibilities.
He's going to need to do that.
He's going to need to do both, actually.
And still have a way to get 2 creatures?
And have mana to be able to deal with these creatures.
Yeah, this is rough. Let's see what Guillaume does. It looks like there's no way out for the Hall of Famer.
Okay, that's one answer.
Reprobation is a thing. Exclude not.
Mana War would have been a reasonable card that allowed you to kind of stay alive.
Yeah. But
wow,
it looks like
bottoming
he's decided
both.
to bottom both.
What are you looking for?
Not an island.
All right, we're going to cycle here, get one more draw. Maybe he does have a Mana War.
He's just going to pass the turn back.
Okay. I mean, if you're Toralf, you just get in there.
Oh, yeah, you're just jamming.
It's just so unlikely for Wafo to have answers to all 3 of the creatures.
Yeah, and that's going to do it. Even Guillaume knows there's no single card in his deck that can take care of the additional 2 creatures. So Toralf Severin picks up round number 1 of the draft. A great run from him. And let's pop back down to our main match and see how this one ends up. We're in game number 3. Again, Arnaud taking game number 1, put him in the lead, but I do like Bernardo Santos' build a bit better.
Yep.
And we saw it there. It just looked more powerful. Gluttonous Slug on turn 2. That's right where you want it. That card can be a real problem going forward.
Nice draw from Arnaud. That was an answered prayers that he took very highly in pack 1.
Second pick?
He did. And, you know, again, if you do end up in white, it is a very, very strong card. Allows you to race and also just put a lot of pressure. Evasion is key in this matchup, as we saw in the previous game.
Also of note here, it looks like Arnaud's on the draw, right? Because that was turn 2 Slug from Bernardo, past the turn into turn 2 Talisman.
Okay, so it looks like Arnaud thinking that this is just a very slow matchup and choosing to value that extra card.
We see the Zhalfirin Decoy hit the battlefield now for Santos before the turn gets passed. Now, Arnaud, you know, he did kind of make up a little bit there.
In answer prayers, when you know that they have the recruit
the Worthy. Yeah.
It's kind of scary, right? Because, you know, it's like, oh, he might just be able to make an instant speed 3/3, so maybe I can't block. It looks like Bernardo attacked anyways.
He did, and it was funny because Arnaud actually went out of his way to represent that by leaving the Talisman untapped, even though he could have left the Swamp untapped to represent Defile and not have to pay life for it. But he's like, no, I might have it. Seriously, you guys. But Bernardo was having none of it.
Yeah, nice start here for Bernardo.
Yes, really, he is doing well. That Ranger Captain of Eos, again coming down with 4 mana available, so it was that plus the Changeling Outcast, again, the only target in his deck for it.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, like you mentioned, Arnaud chose to draw here, and Bernardo really punishing that.
Even with the Talisman of Hierarchy on 2, to kind of catch Arnaud back up on mana, he is just way behind. Is it going to be the first 1,000 cuts here?
The problem is, even if he plays a Wall of 1,000 cuts, there's a Zhalfirin Decoy in play. So if Bernardo plays any creature at all next turn, he can just tap down the wall.
And you can see that is really putting Arnaud in a bit of a pickle here as he surveys the scene and figures out what he wants to do. He's like, man, am I really just running out this wall? No, he's going to pass the turn back. A little pump fake there. He kind of put his hands over his lands and then just said, nah, go.
Well, what he can do here is actually cast Defile and splice on Splicer skill. So he can Defile the Outcast, make an instant speed 3/3, and also the Answered Prayers would also trigger. So that would mean that he might actually be able to get a really nice block in here.
Yeah, there is a Force of Despair in hand for Bernardo, which would take care of the 3/3 Golem token. It won't do anything for Unanswered Prayers, but I keep calling that Answered Prayers. My goodness, this is a white card, right? Like, your prayers get answered.
And yeah, Bernardo has to think that there's something up here, right? I mean, 5 cards in hand with 5 mana up and your opponent just passes. At the very worst, you have to at least expect, you know, some kind of a removal spell here.
So he's going to actually run out the Venomous Changeling. This is clever here from Bernardo. That turns on the Zephyrin Decoy. He's going to leave that back.
Yeah, and I like this.
Yeah. And here's the Splicer skill. Now, Bernardo has the option of tapping it down.
Right, but this will trigger the answered prayers.
Right. So he can block with that.
So he can trade. Curious to see if Arnaud will take that trade, just block the Ranger Captain. Of course, he cannot block the Gluttonous Slug as it has Menace.
Right. It is tempting, right?
Especially given that Bernardo is the one with kind of the fast start here.
Right. It doesn't feel like Arnaud is really on the plan where he's going to, you know, continually activate Answered Prayers and just start slamming. So, yeah, he's going to go for the block here. And this is interesting because Stirring Address is the other card in Bernardo's hand, and he could use it here to save the Ranger Captain and get rid of Answered Prayers. That's pretty tempting.
Yeah.
Especially with the shields fully down here for Arnaud. He just has, you know, no mana available at this point. Yeah.
But it looks like he's letting the trade happen and valuing the overload cost, given that he's at 5 mana. You know, if he plays land number 6, you know, the overload cost might be able to give him a bigger advantage at some point later in the game.
That's right. You know, and we've also seen from Bernardo that he does have the ability to leverage some of those mid to late game cards, like the 2 copies of Graveshifter that he's got in his deck, also the Return from Extinction. So, you know, that was a big decision point for Bernardo. He seems to be thinking, okay, you know what, I am going to go ahead and play for a longer game, even though at this moment, he doesn't have it.
Right.
What do we got here? What did he find? Oh, first sliver chosen. Oof.
So how many slivers are we working with? There's the Changeling, so there's at least 2. So sliver creatures have Exalted. So that will be 2 Exalted triggers with whatever creature Bernardo chooses to attack with. So if he attacks with the Gluttonous Slug,
it's huge.
That'll be 5 power.
And right now he's deciding, do I just want to tap down something first? And he's going to go ahead and tap down the Golem and slam for 5. This is huge. Once again, Arnaud needs to keep adding to the board. The good news for him is that he has the tools to do so. He's got another Wall of 1,000 Cuts in his hand, as well as the Trustworthy Scout that he seems reticent to actually cast. And don't forget Splicer's skill that Bernardo knows about. And once again, Arnaud's just going to pass the turn back here. Now he can try to combine Stirring Address plus Splicer's skill to not only add to his board, but put up something big enough to block the Gluttonous Slug in conjunction with something else. Now Bernardo's hits land number 6, and he's looking at his own copy of Stirring Address in hand like, well, maybe I could just go everything.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, he can go everything and overload, but at the same time, he can just try and chip away, given that he gets those 2 Exalted triggers. But this Stirring Address will be good from Arnaud. Likely will be able to take down one of the creatures. And yeah, Bernardo playing it slow here for now. Attacking with a 5/8 Menace creature.
That's right. So, and with the pump spell at the ready, and don't forget Force of Despair in hand as well, that if Arnaud goes for, okay, I want to pump up, say, my wall, and then splice onto it with Splicer's skill.
You can kill the Golem that gets created, yes.
Exactly. And, you know, he can do that when he wants.
Right, even after blocks to just kind of mess with the combat.
Yeah, that really would mess with combat.
Absolutely. So it looks like we have a 5/7 Wall of 1,000 Cuts along with a Golem.
Yep. So they're going to find another Golem here for Arnaud.
And Arnaud might just block with everything.
Is he triple blocking or double blocking is the question. He's going to triple block.
Yeah, he's going with the triple block. Because given that the Slug only has 5 power, you know, he just wants to make sure that he can get that Slug off the board.
So the question is, if Bernardo uses the Force and the Stirring Address, does his Slug survive?
It should be able to.
He will kill one Golem.
It's got so much toughness.
Yeah, and then it would be a 10 toughness creature. So yes, that's 5, 6, 7, 8. So it would be able to survive.
Yeah, and it will kill the wall as well, right? I mean, it's got 5 power, and then with the stirring address, that's 7 power.
Yes.
And the wall has 7 toughness.
That's correct. Although it looks like he may have ordered the golem first.
Oh.
Yeah, so that sucks. But whatever. It still worked out for Bernardo in the sense that he gets to keep his slug, and he got not 1 but 2 golems off the battlefield as well.
Yeah, but that is big.
It's big.
That is very, very big. And Arnaud drew, I mean, you know, he's got a handful of cards, and I think Bernardo's out of cards.
He is out of cards, so I kind of like where Arnaud's sitting at this point. He gets to cast another copy of Wall of 1,000 Cuts here if you'd like.
And he also drew a generous gift, which he might want to use on the sliver, because he's actually pretty well set up here just to block, you know, just a bunch of creatures.
On the first sliver's chosen?
Yeah.
The Zephyr and Decoy kind of on empty here as well. Bernardo last turn cast a pump spell plus a removal spell, but nothing.
Oh, 6 mana.
Uh-oh.
Can this be?
Oh, it looks like they've got time called in the round, perhaps? See that in the upper right part of the screen. What is Arnaud asking about, I wonder?
Maybe additional time. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, he's just asking if they have any additional time.
Yeah, I mean, these games have been fairly long, right?
Yeah.
You have just a bunch of medium-sized creatures going at it with not a ton of removal.
Yeah, I should probably have a couple of minutes. I'm not sure. But, you know, sometimes we do hold them up
right,
just for a minute or two. And, you know, it can matter here for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But that's up to the judges in the feature match area. They're going to have to get that sorted out with Arnaud and company.
Yeah, and if we are close, I mean, things looking much better for Bernardo, of course.
Feaster of Fools was the play. And is he going to sacrifice the decoy, or is he just going to use it?
I think he's just going to use it. Given that he has the first slivers chosen, the Feaster can still just attack for 5 even without sacrificing a creature.
Yeah, and also, I forgot, Devour is an as it enters the battlefield ability, not a triggered ability when it enters the battlefield like Exploit. So he actually can't do both. So he's just going to run it out as a 3/3 then?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay. I mean, it's tough because, as you pointed out before, you know, getting that thing to a 5/5 seems to have a massive benefit against the Wall of 1,000 Cuts times many.
Yeah. And I will say, if this does end in a draw, it's a lot worse for Bernardo because he already has a draw. He's sitting at 7-0-1.
Oh, yeah.
So picking up a second draw, I mean, that's tough. That's
a loss.
That's basically
right?
a loss,
yeah.
right?
So Arnaud says, sure, you may do so, but before you go to combat, I'm going to use Generous Gift on your first slivers chosen. So that's going to basically turn it from a 3/3 into a 3/3, but with no abilities this time.
And Bernardo trying to end the game here. Venomous Changeling is a free attack here, given that the wall is tapped down. Also, he's happy with that trade, too.
Yep.
And Bernardo might actually just be able to take this one down. I mean,
definitely.
Arnaud's currently sitting at 6.
It does feel like he's going to need something, though.
And Arnaud is just desperately trying to survive here and get that draw, I think, because he's not, given where it's at, he's not in a position to try to be able to win this game.
Unfortunately for Bernardo, it was just a plains off the top of the library.
Yeah, and now, I mean, because Arnaud used the Generous Gift, I wonder if Bernardo is kind of wishing that he had sacrificed the creature to have a 5/5 in play so that, you know, if he does draw a creature, he could at least tap down one of the walls and get in for an attack for 5.
Totally. That's lethal. It would force a chump block in the air. There's Recruit the Worthy for Arnaud. And it looks like it's in Arnaud's best interest here to try to force a draw. It would be his first draw of the tournament, much less bad for him than it is for Bernardo.
Yep.
And also, he's significantly behind in this game.
Yeah, and Bernardo really needed to find some action. Yeah, and just based on the body language, you know that this is going to be a draw. So
yeah, and that's going to do it. We see a draw here. Not super great for really either player, but particularly Bernardo Santos. It is rough, and you can see he's a little frustrated about it.
Right.
As well, and well, I can understand why. As you mentioned, when you break down the standings and when you look at how many points, the way it works here, like any tournament or whatever, is you get 3 points for a win, 0 for a loss, and just 1 for a draw. Right. And if you've done that twice, it does. Yeah. Really closer to a loss than it is to.
And the thing is, neither deck is really trying to win quickly. So it's one of those things where, you just have these long slogs. And at that point, it actually looked like Arnaud was kind of turning the corner and stabilizing. So it's really unclear who actually would have, come out on top of that game.
Arnaud had Recruit the Worthy in his hand there, and he might have got the job done. But it's a draw in the books, and that's going to do it for our first round of draft here on day number 2. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have Maria at the news desk. Don't go anywhere.